Hello and welcome to Cannabis Marketing Live. I am your host, Kendra Losey with Motive Marketing, and our guest today is Brian Davis. He is the co-founder of Mozen, which can be found at getmozen.com. He is going to be talking with us today about all of the hurdles and all of the reasons why you don't want to get into the cannabis industry. There's four main reasons from his experience of why you don't want to get into the cannabis industry, but we're all here and there's a lot of us here. So we're going to also talk about the number one reason why you do want to enter the cannabis industry. And Brian's here to help navigate that and give us some insights as he found that when he launched his company. Welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you, Kendra. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Um,
As we get started, can you
yeah, there's
tell
lots to dive-
everyone, sorry?
I said there's lots to dive into.
Absolutely. I know, right? So before we get started on the topics, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and about how you came to launch your company?
Yeah, so a little over 3 years ago, my brother Mark and I had talked about getting into the cannabis industry. We were, recreational cannabis users from college days and on, and saw a lot of benefits to cannabis. And we have somebody who were parents and had medical cards. We would walk into these dispensaries and we would see all these different products, and it was very overwhelming. And for somebody who thought like they knew a little bit about cannabis, we quickly realized like, wow, there's so much here, and it's so confusing. And what is THC percentages, and what are all these strain names mean, and you know, and vaping, and there's dabbing, and there's all these different ways to kind of consume cannabis. Beyond the bong and the joint and the pipe that basically I used as a youngster, or as we did. And so when we saw these brands, we realized there was really nobody speaking directly to people like us, adult
Right.
professionals, parents, in a very kind of smart, simple way. Everything was either very inner industry lingo with strains like strain names, OG Kush and Jack Herrera and all these great strains. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't resonate to the people that we knew in our world. And we thought, we could create a brand that really connected to a demographic that we knew that was going to be entering the cannabis scene come 2018 with California, going with rec legalization. And so we created the brand Mozen, and Mozen is the Hebrew word for balance. And the philosophy behind that is that we're all searching for balance in life, and we look for it all in different ways. And people like us that have kids with a million different activities and special needs, and have aging parents with health issues and financial issues, and we're constantly on call with work in this today's connected world, that there's never really a downtime, and so the stress and anxiety that we all face, people of our, is tremendous, and we cope with that stress and anxiety in a lot of different ways. And we saw people, taking Xanax and using Ambien to help sleep, and using opiates, and drinking more alcohol than they probably should, and various other things that kind of cope and find their balance. And we, looked at cannabis, as a lot of people do this, is a healthier alternative to help deal with everyday life's, curveballs, so to speak. And is it going to cure your insomnia? No. Is it going to cure your stress and anxiety disorders? No. But it's going to be a tool that you can use to help combat those things and help deal with them in a much healthier way. And so that was really kind of our philosophy in building the Mozen lifestyle brand.
That's absolutely great. And while it might not cure insomnia, I, for one, can attest to the fact that it helps a lot.
Yeah, it's going to help you sleep better. Exactly. And we found that. And so for us, when we launched our first product in 2018, we specifically came out with SKUs, or we started with a disposable vaporizer pen that had specific desired effects that we were looking. And for our specific, this demo, people like us, they were looking for something that was going to help them sleep.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look for something that was going to help them with stress and anxiety, help something to help get them some focus on, during the day, even a little pep in their step.
Yep.
And also help with their relationships. We see a lot with cannabis and sex and with partners, and so we created, and we can get into that one, I'm sure, but we created 4 unique terpene profiles that kind of helped with these desired effects that we were looking to help people find their balance.
Love it. It's so important. Um, okay. As you were starting to get into the cannabis industry, and
Hmm.
seeing everything that was going on, one of the things that we were talking about before is why starting a cannabis company isn't easy or simple. It's not like other businesses where you can, decide to open a bakery, rent the space, start creating everything, and then sell it. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you ran into that created, some of those hurdles you had to jump over when
Well,
starting your
yeah,
business?
I mean, because it's a new business, has its own hurdles, no matter what industry. But not only were we opening up a new business and having a startup, but we were doing a startup in an industry of startups, and in the industry itself was starting up. And and to even add a more complicated measure, there was an industry that existed for 20 years in California
Uh-huh.
that was kind of in this gray area with medical legalization, but didn't have this kind of regulations that we now have, and the levels of compliance that they have to go through. And so transitioning this whole part of the industry into something that is so strictly regulated, and to the point where everything's tracked from the seed that goes into the ground to whatever product you're buying at a dispensary, and all those different levels in between, makes things very challenging to start a business. Then everybody you're working with, all the different businesses, because you need to be having developed great business relationships, whether it's with suppliers in our case or distributors and retail partners. They're all startups too. It's not like they've been doing business in this legal world for many, many years, and you're just a new brand entering something that's established. So I think a combination of all of that, really makes things even more challenging than I think a normal startup would be.
Absolutely. And I think that, and you didn't even mention banking or any of those other giant
Oh,
hurdles.
yeah. And so from that standpoint, you just mentioned banking, and that makes things a lot more challenging in the sense that we don't have this federal legalization at this point, and we don't have even deschedulization or things that we know. We all believe in this industry that are coming.
Right.
They're just not here yet, and so because you can't go open up a bank account, it makes things very, very challenging. It makes things really, be honest, like very scary from a security risk standpoint because you're dealing with cash, and and when that happens, it definitely attracts a certain element because they see something that's easy to steal.
Oh yeah. Plus it's, there's a ton of cash transactions, right? Like I do marketing for companies, and my very first client, in a weirdly full circle kind of way, paid me in cash in the parking lot of the grocery store where I used to like walk to when I was in college. I ended up with
Yeah,
this like giant envelope of cash that was a parking lot deal for something that was completely legitimate business. And it's,
yeah.
I don't recommend that,
Yeah,
but it's crazy.
and luckily, there are some of the our distributors and retail partners that we work with that actually do have bank accounts.
Yeah.
And so there are ways, but there are times where you have to deal with a lot of cash, and it can be a little scary from that standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of cash, one of the other things that we were talking about a little bit is why raising capital for new cannabis business is extremely challenging. Like what challenges did you find? Part one. And part two is how is that different from other industries?
Well, there's no, but one is the access to banking.
Hmm.
Right there, we just talked about banking. So that's just one source of capital that a lot of small businesses and new businesses can easily like seek out.
Hmm.
We don't have that option. The other is the larger financial institutions, the Morgan Stanleys, the Goldman Sachs, the bigger sources of capital, um, because of the federal stance, they're not at this point investing
Yeah.
in cannabis companies, and so you're really just dealing with smaller private equity funds that are cannabis focused, family funds that maybe are interested in making these kind of investments, or just wealthy individuals.
Yeah.
And so your pool of
Yes.
funding targets is much smaller than if you were starting up in a different industry. And
Yeah.
so that right there is probably the main reason that things get very challenging.
Yeah,
um,
and it's not like there's a database or a central place you can go to find all these people. Like
Correct.
makes
Yeah,
them
and
harder
right
to
now,
source.
specifically in the time we're at, things are a little bit become even more challenging in the sense that the industry right now, because it's going through all this growth curve, and the things aren't as rosy, so to speak, on the a lot of the bigger companies that raise significant funds aren't doing very well financially, for a lot of different reasons,
Right.
and so it makes a lot of the people that were putting money into the space, they're kind of holding a little bit more, being more cautious. I think everyone is still very gung ho up on the industry and the growth potential of the industry. Look, that's going to happen. It's just like anything that's brand new, it's just going through a lot of learning, and maturation. And I think it'll be good in the long run. It's just kind of tough in the short run.
Do you have any advice for companies that might be looking at trying to source outside funding?
Um,
It's a
that's a
tough
good
question.
question. Yeah. I think obviously networking, through, there's a lot of investor conferences right now that are kind of taking place, and be very choosy about which ones to attend, because they can be very pricey, and B, some of them just don't really amount to anything. Um, I think also collaboration with other businesses in the space that maybe are doing things that are complementary to what you're doing. And so, and they, a lot, because trust me, most companies are looking for funding at this point.
Hmm.
Um, and so there might be a way to kind of do joint ventures together, or do partnership or strategic partnerships, where now you and another entity maybe together look more attractive to a potential investor, or source of capital.
That was a really good answer to a surprise question, and two, a tough question. So thank you.
Yeah.
Stephanie Liu just popped on, and she was agreeing that that was a tough question, and you answered it well for sure. Because it is so important, and it's something that a lot of companies in this space are dealing with. There's a lot of companies that are falling flat because of lack of funding or access to the typical banking and capital that you were talking about. And there's some that are figuring it out, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I think there's a lot of companies that raised significant amount of capital that unfortunately didn't spend it wisely,
Right.
for whatever reasons. They obviously had a plan, and they were trying to execute that plan based on those capital. But I think too much in this industry, and not even just too much in startups, and going through these kinds of funding, whether it's in cannabis or other industry, it's all about the next round.
Hmm.
And so to get that next round, it's more about, let's get top line numbers up. And sometimes the focus on top line is, you're not focusing on the bottom line, which is
Right.
profitability,
Yep.
and self-sustaining. And
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong, to find that happy balance, so to speak, of growing, but not growing so fast and so crazy where you're neglecting profitability, because then you're just going to keep raising more money and keep raising more money. And I do know that is a strategy that some businesses try to do. But I think what a lot of companies are finding right now, that had they been thinking more about profitability, they wouldn't be in these positions right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's an easy thing to, when your eye is on this prize over here, you can lose track of the important details. Um, and when someone's handing you a bunch of money, it is an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Great answers on that though, for sure. Thank you. Okay, so that was the second challenge. One of the other things we were
yeah.
talking about that's really important is, why is the black market or illicit market in California bigger than the legal market, and why does it continue to grow? What do we need to know about that?
It's the black market has been, really the thorn to this legal cannabis industry. It was always there, so it wasn't like it was anything new. I think the hope was that a lot of these businesses were going to shift over to the legal market, and a lot of them didn't for various different
Mm-hmm.
reasons. One, which we alluded to earlier, is the hurdles just to get compliant and be regulated and to get your licenses. It really is not easy and takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of different resources needed to go that route. And then the taxation that we have, through the state, because you're getting taxed through every single level of the supply, through the chain all the way, and then the end customer ends up paying, this 26% tax at checkout, is fueling this black market,
Mm-hmm.
because the compliant companies have to spend so much money just in how they produce stuff, manufacture, package, label, stay compliant with metric, all those things. So those are all costs. Then you add in and so like your retail on that particular item is going to be higher than something in a black market shop,
Yep.
because there's just more cost involved in producing and putting it to market. And then when you add in this additional tax, it makes things so dramatic in price that people are just, I'll go to the black market shop that I was going to 3 years ago that has that vape pen for $20 versus, going to the licensed dispensary that now is $40 plus 26%. And so, it's just a math thing. And so I know the state is aware. I know the municipalities are aware. Obviously, the whole industry is aware. And I think that they're trying to make steps to combat this. Obviously, everybody wants it to happen much quicker than it's happening. I'm always more of a very positive person, so I feel, that over the next couple of years that this will kind of start working itself out,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. I think also what people are really finding is that, and I think we'll get into the fourth thing here, is, the products that you buy at a legal shop compared to what you're buying at the black market, just from a health and that's something that's going to be grown, without pesticides and without any kind of uh, things that are cutting corners, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. That you're just, to have that peace of mind that you're buying something that's safe. Uh, I'm hoping that eventually the public will start to realize that more as well.
Agree. And I think that that's actually leads us straight into the fourth topic we were talking about when we talk about the hurdles that companies in the cannabis space have to jump through. The fourth topic is the education, right? Like when you
Yeah.
start to look at what people need to know, there's some really safety issues that are coming up in the last couple months, 6 months or so, that I wanted to talk with you about as well. What kind of education, like what else can we do as an industry to help with this education issue? And what are you and your brand doing as you approach that?
Well, there's a lot on that particular topic. And so one when we started our brand, education was actually one of our core, value that we set it for Mozen. My brother Mark actually comes from the education industry, and so we always knew, especially with our kind of target customer, that isn't the cannabis connoisseur, isn't as they don't understand different strains. They don't understand potency. If I said to them, "Hey, this has got 80% THC," they don't know if that's strong or not strong. 100% might be really strong, and 80% might be mild. And so, for us, that was always just a goal of just educating them about the benefits of cannabis and what it can do, and what's CBD and what's THC percentage, and just kind of giving them kind of big picture knowledge. And we did that through in-home education events. We did that at churches and synagogues throughout California, where we actually, Mark and I and other people from our staff would speak. We would go to farmers markets. We would go to yoga studios and CrossFit gyms and meet with our target customers. And it wasn't so much we needed to be at the High Times Cup or the Emerald Cup. It was more about us reaching our specific, customer that was looking at cannabis, but they didn't really know much, where it was going to help them. And we even knew that not everybody wants to vape. We knew that 2 years ago. Everyone's going to want to consume cannabis differently. Our goal has always been to expand into other product categories, because everyone's going to want to use cannabis in a different way. Some people might just want a lotion or a cream because they've got some joint pain, and that's where they want to use it. Some people don't want to inhale anything, so consuming an edible or a beverage makes more sense. Some people, love to smoke flower, and they want to use that. And so we knew you needed there's a lot of different entry points for people, and just even educating people on that, it just seemed to us so basic. The other thing is, I think right now, because of this kind of quote unquote vaping crisis, being as transparent as possible in today is paramount, because, in the legal market, anything that goes on a shelf at a legal dispensary goes through such a rigorous testing process.
Yep.
There's no vitamin E acetate. There is no cutting agents. There is no pesticides, because the state won't allow it. It won't pass testing. We've seen other brands not pass testing. We've had batches that, hey, it didn't pass testing. Well, we can't put that into the market, so we have to create another batch. That's a good thing. What has happened is, because of these, because there's so many black market shops, there's so many products on the shelf at these shops that aren't tested at all. And you don't even know if they're being made in someone's garage, and they're cutting corners to save costs. And so you don't know what's inside them. And unfortunately, it's been resulting in illnesses and even deaths. And it kind of gives the whole vaping category a bad rap, so to speak.
Oh, it's awful.
Then you factor in the nicotine vaping with, artificial flavors and the Juul type devices, and just the word vaping, like, especially, I have a high school aged daughter, you just bring it up, and it's just all lumped together.
Yeah.
And there's no differentiation between nicotine and cannabis. It just says vaping. Oh, the vaping epidemic at this high school.
Right.
Well, the vaping epidemic at high school primarily is the nicotine stuff and this illegal product, because none of the legal people, they're not 21 and over, they can't go to a legal dispensary unless they're getting it from their parents or something. But
so, and you just covered a broad amount of information that was all really important, but I want to dial it in for people who might be watching who aren't necessarily aware of this. What message would you like to give to people as someone who owns a lifestyle brand that includes vape pens? What message would you like to give to people and you wish that they knew about your products as well as other legal products here in California?
no, I mean, I think that they should know that, the cannabis vaporizer products that you would find in a licensed dispensary in California, that anything that is on that shelf will have, testing information, batch numbers. They'll have co-reports that you can actually see exactly what's inside the stuff that you're consuming. And so that's really, really helpful. And you then, as the consumer, can make a decision: do I want to put this in my body or not? Now, because of the restrictions or the regulations that we have set at the state set, as I mentioned, you can't use any kind of, synthetic material and cutting agents and vitamin E acetate, which has been kind of like the big buzzword. None of those things aren't allowed. And everything's tested through, at different steps of the production process. We happen to use a supplier that does extra testing, which we find to be very valuable, because we want to make sure that we're putting out the safest product that we can for our customers. Because look, to be honest, it is a safer alternative to inhaling real smoke that could, over time, can really affect your lungs. But as I mentioned earlier, there are other options to consume cannabis. Vaping isn't the be all end all, and we know that. It's just, we think that there's a time and place for it.
It's true. It's very, very true. I think that you touched on a few good things there that I want to dive into. But first, since we've talked about all these things, that all these hurdles and challenges for getting into the cannabis industry and actually maintaining and growing your business so that it stands out, why do you do it? What is the reward? What's the payoff for you personally that makes it worthwhile?
I don't know. That's a good question. No, and it's not. I know people are like, oh, it's fine. It's really, I've always wanted to create a brand. I've sold products for years, mostly like photo frames and gift products to major retailers, and they weren't brand specific. There wasn't a lot of repeat business because there wasn't a lot of brand loyalty in those kind of household products. It was just more of like, does this design fit my living room, or where I was going to put this art piece. Mm-hmm. And so to have a brand that stood for something that could help people, and help people deal with real life stuff. And whether that's, I've had a really stressful day and I just need something to take the edge off, whether that's, I really want to get a little closer to my loved one and I want to have a really nice intimate moment with them, whether that's, I'm not sleeping well and I need to just kind of get a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. Those are real things that people deal with every day. And look, it's fun too. There's a social component to it. We all need that as well. Mm-hmm. And so to eventually hopefully build this brand into the lifestyle brand we envision in multiple product categories, and direct delivery, and being in the dispensaries that we want to be at, and then expanding beyond California into other markets, and really creating making this into a premier lifestyle brand. That that's our focus, and to me that's our goal.
Love it. Love it. And that's so powerful too, because we all have our own reasons for being in this industry. And I think it's really important to remember what that is, what your why is as you're going through, your personal one as well as what for your business. You said something in there that I thought was really interesting in terms of your approach for a lifestyle brand and how you are going through and adding extra testing into your products. One of the things that we were talking about, there's two things I wanted to bring up here. One is you mentioned something really important before we got started, and that was, can you talk about accessibility of your products to people in California?
Yeah, so we're in a number of dispensaries right now, mostly in SoCal. Probably, I want to say about 40 to 50 dispensaries. If you go to getmozen.com on our website, there's like a store finder. In addition, we partnered with a statewide delivery service. So you can actually go on our website and order Mozen and have it delivered to your home through a delivery service, and it actually delivers the next day. It's a great system. So a lot of people don't, either have the time to walk in a dispensary. The dispensaries might not be located near their home for whatever reason, or just don't really want to go to the dispensary all the time. And so it's nice to be able to order something and have it delivered.
Absolutely.
That's
There's not a lot of product companies that offer that, so I think it's actually really nice differentiator that you do for sure.
Yeah, and kind of going back into the brand, part of things, one of the other things is we try not to take ourselves too seriously either. We like to laugh a little bit at life, whether it's, the in-laws coming for Thanksgiving dinner, or, you've got to spend, a day at the amusement park with your kids, and you're just looking, for a way to kind of deal with your shit, so to speak. We try to kind of position Mozen that way, not to go too far and from a humorous standpoint, but we do like to laugh a little bit at life. Um, Life is short. We got to enjoy ourselves. So we just try to, you'll see things where we'll have like a little smiley face that says, before Mozen and after Mozen, and just things of that nature. And if you look at our names of our pens, it's names like Good Night or Rest and Chill, that more delineate, time of day and effectiveness, and it's not like OG Kush and Jack Herrera and those type of things. So our customers will easily understand, oh, this is the daytime or this is the nighttime as well.
So important. Okay, side tangent here. I've had so many, not that I've had a ton of pens because I don't actually use vape pens that often, but I've had so many where I don't know what the product is because the packaging on the vape pen doesn't always tell me. So I don't know if it was the CBD pen I bought, the nighttime one I bought, or the daytime, and the strength. And you guys do something really cool with your packaging that I wanted to highlight. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I am going to attempt to bring up your website because I think it's really important to show this
Thank you.
too.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. I mean, in addition to the names, and we have on the sativa side, Seize the Day, which is more mild in strength. It's got 40% THC with a little bit of CBD, and Power Up, which is our stronger sativa. And then on the indica side, and those are indicated by a red color, so it's sativa. If you understand the leafly color chart, but we also indicate the strength with dots, and the dots, can indicate how strong something is. So a 2 dot being less potent than a 4 dot. Just right off the bat, one can kind of just simply understand, oh, that's not going to be as strong. But you mentioned something earlier about, hey, sometimes you buy something, you take it out of the box, and you might know what it is from the box, but now you bought it, whether it's a cartridge or a pen itself, it's not really labeled. And so that was really important to us, was to label the actual pen itself, which we've done, and we actually have the name and it has the dots on it. So that way, when you actually pull the pen out, you know which one you're consuming. You know if it's the strong daytime or the mild nighttime, and I'm using more generic terms.
Right.
And so just that simplicity, we felt was really beneficial for our customers, and we've gotten a lot of great positive feedback about that. We saw people prior to that, putting Post-it notes around vape cartridges because they had no idea what was in it. They had to remember, like, oh, this is the CBD one.
I've done that. I've done that because you've got the pods and they're like, I mean, I get it. They're this big, but it sure would be nice to know what I'm about to try because I don't know about you, but it really affects me. So if I'm gonna accidentally take a nighttime one in the middle of the day, I will be out for hours. And no one wants that to happen accidentally. No one.
Correct, correct, correct. So that was very important to us from the beginning. Just as somebody who would walk in to these stores ourselves, we struggled with it, and so we were like, well, if we're struggling with it, and we asked around, we're like, let's make this easy. And that was always what our what we wanted to do. It's the reason why we came out with the disposable, just because it was simple. You didn't have to buy a bunch of different cartridges and screw it on a pen and then push a button 5 times. And is it blinking? Is it charged? Is it not charged? Our thing was always to have something that people can just pull out of the box and consume,
Mm-hmm.
and then dispose of in a ecological manner. We tried to do that as well. We tried to leave as low of a footprint as we can, and we have a lot of different ways. We tell customers how they can recycle the different components, because the batteries do need to be separated to be disposed of correctly. And then there's some recycle programs that we're bringing on with some of our dispensary partners,
Awesome.
where people can actually return pens and then receive a discount on their next purchase, and things of that nature, because that was also very important to us too.
Oh yeah, the recycling component and there's nothing worse than seeing all the waste in the industry. So thank you for cutting down with it where you can for sure. Um, okay, Brian, we're going to be wrapping up here, but I have a couple questions for you in a speed round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay,
I'm ready.
I'm going to ask this first question in two parts because you have your own product line. So first, of your own product line, what is your favorite and why?
Rest and chill.
Hmm.
It is a 2 to 1, 40% THC, 20% CBD.
Nice.
It really, after a long day, it really helps calm me down. It's been just kind of my go-to.
Awesome.
I don't know.
Okay, and out of other cannabis products, what is your favorite?
Very good question. I really like the Kiva brand. I think they do a really good job of producing edibles that are dosed at a really good level, that are easy. They don't hit me like some of the other edibles do, because they can kind of be a
Yes.
little overwhelming, and you're like, hey, I want this to stop right now. So I really like what they've done with their brand.
I actually just tried their Camino brand of the gummies. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, those are
yeah.
delicious. And you're right, they're like a smooth, I am a big fan
And
of
I like
those.
their espresso beans, and the mints. Yeah,
Oh, I haven't
those have
tried
been really
those.
good.
Note to self. Okay, so your second one. Is there any books or podcasts or publications that you recommend for people to stay up on the industry?
Um, I mean, if you're in the industry, there's an incredible Facebook group called the California Regulation. I know I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. That is extremely valuable from just an industry new. Like, it seems like every day there's probably 20 different pieces of articles that the curators are putting. I mean, it's a very engaging Facebook page. Um, Otherwise, there's a number of different websites where you can kind of get more just kind of bigger picture. But there's nothing that like I'm trying to think of the one that I use a lot, which is Marijuana Business Daily.
Mm,
Sorry, I was
yeah,
forgetting that name.
that's a good one
You
for
know,
sure.
the, yeah,
Okay, and the last question, and while you're talking about it, I'm going to put you on the screen with your contact information. Where can
sure.
people find you if they want to connect, and where can people find your brand if they want to try it?
So to connect with me, if you want, you can email me individually at Brian, and that's Brian with an I, at getmozen.com, BRIAN, at getmozen, GETMOZEN.com. That's probably the best way to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on Instagram at getmozen. And the best way to purchase our product is the easiest is just to purchase online directly through our delivery service, and then just go to our website and you can see all the different dispensary partners that we have, from San Diego and Orange County to the LA area, a number in the Bay Area as well. But if you're not anywhere near them, we deliver. I think they deliver to about 85% of the zip codes in California.
That's pretty
So,
good.
which is most of the major metro areas.
Nice. And right now on the screen underneath Brian is his contact information. So the website and Instagram and Facebook. You have been awesome. I appreciate all of the knowledge you have shared with everybody. Thank you so much,
Well,
Brian,
thank
for
you.
being here. You guys have a great rest of your day. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments field, tag Brian or myself, and we will be sure to respond to you. All right. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Kendra. Thank you very much. Have a good one.